all you Valley of the Sun chapter members. And I saw from the sign up list, we actually have people from outside the chapter, which is great to see you guys. So I'll say, at least for the people in New York, good afternoon. We're here to present another one of our webinars in our long series of webinars. This one is on basically returning back to work after the pandemic. We're going to talk to a couple coordinators or ETC people that are transitioning back to the workplace, and we're going to see how they're doing it. Hopefully we'll have time for questions at the end, so please hold your questions till the end. We put it in the question and answer box, and then Elizabeth can, I guess, read it at the end, and we'll have our panelists answer the questions. Let me see here. I'm going to introduce two of our speakers. Angie will introduce herself afterwards. Danielle Taylor is our first speaker. She served as a trip production coordinator for American Express in Phoenix, Arizona for 5 years. Her program spans 7 buildings on 2 campuses, serving more than 12,000 employees and contractors. She is or has earned Valley Metro's Outstanding Transportation Coordinator for a large employer, private sector, 3 times. Her program was named Valley Metro's Outstanding Travel Reduction Program twice. Prior to joining the American Express team, Danielle served in the United States Air Force for 20 years. We appreciate your service, and is currently raising 2 teens, which I think might be more difficult job than serving. I'm not quite sure, but I had 2 teens. So can be more of a bit of a trying thing. Our second speaker, Mary Marshall, is our secretary on our Valley of the Sun board. She serves as the travel reduction coordinator for the state of Arizona's travel reduction program, Capital Rideshare. She's done this for 4 years. In this role, she manages more than 23,000 employees at hundreds of locations. I can only imagine how fun that is. And was Valley Metro's 2019 Outstanding Transportation Coordinator. And then Angie, like I said, will introduce herself after Mary speaks. So we're going to start with Danielle, so I'll turn it over to you.
All right. So I was just going to walk through my program just to kind of give you an idea of what we were doing before COVID, so that when we talk about going back, you kind of know where we're coming from. So the top part we already talked about. We had an incredibly robust van pool program with over 40 vans coming from all over the Valley. We had, as you can see in the top right-hand corner, we had this large blow-up map that you could access online, as well as the table events that had little dots at every pickup location. So as people were looking for vans that they could join, they could look and see if there was something near their house, and then look at what time it picked up. And then it also, we had one for each location. It was 100% subsidized. So anybody that was on the van pool only had to pay for gas, probably why we had 40 plus vans. But so it was a huge program. We had vans coming from, an hour and a half to 2 hours away, all the way up to about 30 minutes out. We also had a robust carpool program with over 150 carpools, parking spots that were close to the entrances. We did a renewal every 6 months, and you had to have a tag to park in those spots. We had our own guaranteed ride home program on top of the one that offered through the van pool program. We were using a taxi service, getting ready to transition to Lyft, literally right when Corona hit. And then for communication, we have our own SharePoint site that all the employees and contractors can access to get information, to sign up for things. We did quarterly table events, and then we would have articles on our blog. We also had a bike to work program, subsidized bus pass. We, of course, did the quarterly drawings. We have electrical vehicle charging stations. On top of that, we also have spots where if you are in your 3rd trimester, you can sign up for expectant mother parking, or if you have a health issue that's short-term, you could sign up for a closed parking spot for that. For our survey, as you all, if anybody that does a survey knows, it's how hard it is to get 60% of people to answer those surveys. So we would have huge events with prize tables or prize wheels that you could spin in order to win prizes. And then we also had drawings that once you turned in your completion of the survey, you'd be put in for drawings for prizes such as iPads or Apple Watches, that kind of thing. And then we had little giveaways just to promote the program, as you can kind of see in the picture. So that's what we were doing prior to all of this hitting. In March 2020, basically we sent everyone home. So we were 100% from home, except for facilities maintenance and our facility engineers. Around May, we figured, okay, it's time. We don't know how long this is going to keep going. So we turned in all of our van pools. And obviously most of our other programs became non-applicable at that point. The 2020 survey in November was difficult. It was, since everybody was at home, getting the information out, because our company only rarely lets us do emails. So I got to send one out and that's about it. So getting everybody to take that survey was extremely difficult. And then when I got the results, I kind of had to laugh because over 2,000 people said they were still driving themselves to work when we're 100% from home. So I was like, wow. But what are you going to do? As of today, we still have less than 50 people that have returned to work. If you cannot do your job at home, then you can come into work. We opened it up to about 300 people, but only about less than 50 of those people have taken us up on it. We are going to allow up to about 20% of people to come back starting in September. It was July, but we've now pushed it to September. So we actually are not expecting people to come back until September now. And so the challenges with that, again, our communication has been the hardest thing, getting the word out to people. So I've been using the blog, I've been using our SharePoint site. I have a list of some marketing people within the separate divisions that will forward out information for me. So that's how I've been kind of getting the information out about what we're doing for the TRP program. Our second challenge is tracking work from home. We don't do it as a company. So finding a way to actually turn that information into them and track. We don't even track who's coming into work. We know that there's about 40 people coming into work, but on a day-to-day basis, no one can tell you who that is. So we're actually working with our company right now to, because we have to badge in to go through that system and kind of track who is going to be coming to work, because it's easier to then take those people off and then just say, okay, everyone else is working from home. Except these 40 people. Instead of tracking 8,000 people working from home, I only have to track the 40 that are actually coming into the office. And that will, obviously that number is going to grow. Uncertainty on return dates. As I said, we are going to invite about 20% of the people from one of our buildings back in September. The other 3 buildings we're actually still doing, we actually decided to do renovations on while everybody's home. And those renovations will finish in March. So we'll slowly start to bring people back. We actually are not going to bring any contractors back, at least until the second half of 2022. So we are very much slow rolling people back in at a very slow rate. So in order to start our programs back up, it'll be dependent on the numbers of people in certain locations. So for example, our van pool program, we will start back up in 2022. But based on the small numbers, we don't expect to have very many van pools. So if we happen to have a few people that are in one area that are far out, we will certainly start a van pool up for them. And again, just getting those people, those resources together to find out whether they need that program is going to be something where I'll reach out to, as people come back to work, I'll start reaching out to them and saying, hey, how are you getting to work? You know, what's your zip code? So that we can try and pair those people up into vans if needed. Carpool parking probably won't be an issue for us until the second half of 2022, just because we have, you know, thousands of parking spots. And with very few people, there's not really much of an incentive to park in a close carpool spot when there's plenty of other close spots. So while people may carpool, we probably won't actually have our program up and running until we get more folks back to work and it becomes more of an incentive, because really the only reason they sign up is to have those close parking spots. Bike to work, you know, in 2022, we'll start that one back up. So anybody that wants to can continue to bike to work. And our guaranteed ride home program, we will also start, although again, I don't see that we'll be getting a lot of use from that, since you have to be a registered carpool user or a registered van pool user to use the guaranteed ride home program. And that's going to be a very small number of people. So, you know, there's definitely some challenges as we get back slow rolling people, and we really don't expect our programs to get back to where they were probably until the end of 2022. So big changes for us. Also, you know, it's possible that more people will continue to work from home even after all of this is over. You know, I think that we've learned that there's a lot of things that can be done at home just as well that we weren't doing prior. So it'll just kind of depend as people come back, how we transition, and how we slowly roll people in. And again, I think communication and reaching out and talking to people and finding out what their needs are is going to be the biggest step for this.
Danielle, I know we are saving questions for the end, but there was a question about explaining the annual survey that people outside of Phoenix probably don't know what that is.
Oh, okay. So in Arizona, Maricopa County has a trip reduction program that you have to be a part of. It's mandated, and as part of that, once a year you have to have your employees take a survey that basically asks them how they get to work. Do they drive themselves? Do they carpool? Do they van pool? Do they bike pool? You know, how long does it take them to get to work? How far is their commute to work? What zip code they live in. So it gets all of that information and then compiles it. And we have to have a 60% response rate. And then all of that information is sent back to us so that we can see how well our trip reduction program is doing and what kind of things we can do to try and make that program better.
Yeah, and I might add to that one of the benefits of that is if you track the either drive alone rate or average vehicle ridership rate, you can see what impacts your incentives have as far as reducing travel, which then reduces congestion and pollution. But getting people to fill out a survey is a trick in itself. We're working on that here as the city is contemplating doing a trip reduction ordinance, City of Reno. And so I've got the software set up. We ran a test with the Washoe Health Department's green team. And of the, I believe, 14 members on the green team, 3 of them filled out the survey in the 2-week period. So we obviously have a few more challenges. Well, I have a couple of questions for Danielle too, but I will hold them till the end.
Right.
And now, Mary, if you would like to let us know what's going on in your area.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so Elizabeth is going to run my slides for me.
Okay, how does that look?
That looks great.
Okay.
Okay, next slide.
All right.
Okay, so like Danielle, I'll run through what our pre-COVID program looked like, how we responded, and what we're expecting. So our program serves more than 23,000 state employees at more than 80 state agencies. and it's spread across a county that is 4 times the size of Rhode Island. And so those sites can be as small as, 5 people working in a DMV in a rural area to our Capitol Mall is considered one site. And we have more than 8,000 employees there. So it also includes employees at executive, legislative, and judicial offices, as well as statewide elected officials. So next slide. And so these are the services that we offered. So we had a subsidized transit pass. Like Danielle, we had a van pool program whereby we pay 100% of the lease costs, preferred parking for registered carpoolers. We had a statewide telework program. We have EV charging stations in some locations. We also last year, we launched the Ride Amigos TDM platform. So we were able to in-house offer ride matching services. Employees could dispatch an emergency ride home through a Lyft credit and monthly contests that we use to incentivize participation in our commuter club, which is hosted on the Ride Amigos platform. We also, the beginning of last year, we launched a Scoop Carpool on Demand pilot, and that was for our Capitol Mall area only. And so the pie chart there shows our survey results. As Danielle mentioned, by law, all major employers in Maricopa County must survey their employees once a year regarding their travel reduction efforts. And so here you get an idea of usage of the alternative modes among our employees. Okay, so next slide. So for the purposes of this presentation today, I'm going to focus on what would be our equivalent of a campus, which is our Capitol Mall area. So roughly 1/3 of our employees working in Maricopa County work in this area. It's a 1.5 square mile area. You can walk it end to end in 15-20 minutes. And so among these buildings, and again, there's more than 40 buildings, there's plenty of parking, and the premium parking at many of our state buildings or state leased buildings are reserved for the employees in the registered Capitol Mall or Capitol Ride Share carpools. Next slide. So the Capitol Mall area, we are very well served by Valley Metro's local and commuter transit options. So in the orange lines and numbers that you see there and the red, those are all the commuter buses. So for more than a decade, I would board a bus in a far-flung bedroom community and travel 45-50 minutes to downtown Phoenix. And the bulk of our employees who use transit are those types of commuters. We also have folks who take local transit and light rail. And we also have multimodal users who might take a local bus to a light rail station, or they might ride their bike to a park and ride, and they can load their bike on a bike rack either on the front of the bus, or light rail cars have bike racks as well. So we had roughly 1,600 employees a month that were utilizing transit through this program. And by my April invoice for transit showed 78 employees took 741 transit rides. In terms of dollar amounts, my monthly transit bill would run $70,000 to $80,000 a month. and we would split that cost between employees, and we would pay half. And I believe my April invoice was about $1,600 total. So transit took a hit. And so there were two things going on. One was, obviously there was a reduced demand, but Valley Metro instituted safety precautions whereby employees would board from the back of the bus and bypass the fare box. And that was to keep their drivers safe. So most of what I've been paying in terms of my transit bills have been for light rail riders, because those fare boxes are external. They're on the platforms outside where the people wait to board the trains. All right, so next slide. So the program changes. So our governor issued a series of executive orders under the moniker of Stay Home, Stay Safe in March 2020. So all employees who were able to work from home began teleworking. We saw our van pool usage was greatly reduced. Our exception is the Department of Corrections. Those are probably more traditionally what you think of in terms of a campus type setting for transportation. We have employees who commute to a far area in Maricopa County, and they leave Maricopa County and they go to another state prison complex in the neighboring county. So we cover all of those van pools. Our transit subsidies are determined by law. So it's spelled out in law where we are able to subsidize those commuters, and that's living and working in Maricopa County. So the other item, of course, I just spoke to is we can't really determine our actual transit usage because of the restrictions requiring the riders to board at the back of the bus. The other thing that hit us was we had just launched a pilot program for Scoop Carpool on Demand in our Capitol Mall area. And so that has been placed on hold indefinitely until we are bringing larger groups of people back. Now, folks are still able to use that service if they've signed up, but we've only had a handful of people use it in the last year. We are not actively promoting that. And then, of course, other program services, service demands have dropped as well. Next slide. So the big change came to our telework program. We had a hard time getting all agencies on board with telework. Our telework program actually started in 1992. Arizona was a pioneer in government telework, and we launched a pilot, and then it was signed into a full-fledged program through an executive order. And so that program had popularity that has, it's been dependent on primarily agency culture. And so as I noted at the beginning of this presentation, we have more than 80 agencies. We have 3 different branches of government, and we also have statewide elected offices. And so you would see varying levels of telework being embraced. And so we know this from our annual travel reduction survey, but we also track telework because telework is coded differently in our payroll system. And so while that is definitely dependent on individual workers accurately coding their telework, it's not perfect data, but we think it's really good data. And so we've been able to watch the growth of that program. And we had one agency, our Medicare agency, that embraced a virtual office program back in 2005. And by 2007, they had enough employees participating in virtual office, meaning they didn't have an assigned workspace, they worked from home. That the agency, we call it Access, the Medicare office, they were able to vacate one of their buildings. And in 2007, they estimated the cost savings to be more than $300,000 annually. So we already had that model for a very successful virtual office program. And so when the state all left for to telework en masse, they already had nearly 1/3 of their staff were participating in that type of a program. So with our new reality, the governor's office got behind a transformation in our telework program. So we've had more than half of the state employees in Maricopa County who have been working remotely since last April. And the program we had in place was designed for the employee who teleworked 1 or 2 days per pay period. So we revised our policy. We added a virtual office definition, and we've been working on revising our training and our telework agreement. Our telework program has always required a telework agreement whereby the employee and the supervisors work out the conditions for the telework agreement, the day of the week, what equipment, whether or not it's the employee or the state who's providing internet connectivity. The default is it's the employee who provides that. And so we are working on revising the telework agreement and the guidelines that go with that. So we're hoping to have all of this launched by the end of March, possibly it may be the first week of April, but we're going to try for the end of March. But the interesting thing about this is the new program is also includes a space utilization plan. So the idea is the agencies will look at how many people they actually need to bring back, and where possible to follow the access model, the state Medicare, Medicaid office model of actually shrinking the real estate footprint. And so that probably won't change my program offerings in the Capitol Mall area a whole lot, because most of the buildings in Capitol Mall area are actually state owned. But we have a lot of personnel who are in leased office buildings. And so if we are able to free up more space on the Capitol Mall, we can vacate some of that very expensive leased space and move the employees into space or into state-owned buildings. So that's also a big part of this new program. Next slide. Sorry about that. So our expectations for the coming year, the state has not issued a singular back to work plan. Obviously, you know, all of the agencies are, the executive agencies are following the governor's lead, but each branch of government makes its own determination. And each agency is evaluating its need regarding employees returning to the work sites. So in this new telework program, the governor has asked his executive level agencies to take a good look at realistically how many employees they need to bring back, how many want to come back, and come up with a potential virtual office number so they can look at what the needs are for that agency. We are still providing the travel reduction program services to employees, but the demand is, as I had noted, is definitely much lower. We used to issue roughly 100 bus passes a month, and that's been that's dropped by more than 80%. And so before we gear up to run promotions again, we're definitely going to await direction to see what the governor's office is doing. We certainly don't want to contradict the governor if the governor's, asking for employers to keep employees home. So we have that information available for new hires. It's on our website. It's shared with employees, but we're not doing tabling events or our full-on promotions that we did previously. And so the big driver for what this program is going to look like this year and beyond is the adoption of the revised remote work program. And so that's where we will look to see how this impacts the different offerings. Our van pool program has definitely taken a hit. But we are hopeful that when we start moving more people back into the office, that we will see that van pool program pick up again. Once we're able to actually see our actual transit card usage, we will plan accordingly for that as well. And so that's our program contact information. And I am also on Connect, so you can reach me through there if you have any other questions about our program that you would like to follow up.
I like your little happy cloud.
So not everybody heard the Connects part. So if you're not participating in Connects, please do. So that'll make Elizabeth happy because it's one of her babies. So we want to try to get everybody connecting, an easy way to talk to each other about things that are going on. So now Angie's going to introduce herself and talk about her program. Angie, it's all yours.
Thanks, Scott. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Angie Wilkie. I work for Valley Metro and I manage our van pool program. I've been with Valley Metro since 2014. Prior to that, I worked at the city of Glendale for 10 years in neighborhood services and also worked at Honeywell prior to that. So our van pool program is a little bit different than other programs throughout the country in that we actually own the fleet. So we receive federal funding to purchase the van, and then we have a contract with Enterprise and they manage the day-to-day operations for us. So a little bit about the program. Pre-COVID, we had about 375 active vans, and since COVID has hit, we're down to about a little over 200 active vans. And we are seeing that the majority of those are essential workers. So those are workers that are still going into the office, like Mary had mentioned, Department of Corrections, VA Hospital, Mayo Clinic. Those individuals are still commuting to work. And then, of course, the other organizations like Danielle's with American Express, most of them have sent their employees home to telework since COVID. So we are grateful for those essential workers who are still part of the program. And just talking with different organizations, it sounds like everyone has a little bit different plan as to when they will be returning to work. And a lot of them are going to be returning to van pooling when the timing is right. And it's just kind of different, throughout. So just depends on what individual companies plan to do over the next year or so. And then I think are we going to open it up for a panel discussion or other Q&As?
Yeah, do we have some questions first before I see a couple questions in the chat.
Yep.
So I'm gonna take liberty because Ruth copied the question that was in my head for Danielle. Is American Express looking at consolidating with so many people teleworking? Are they going to continue to telework, and are they looking at downsizing their physical footprint?
We have one building that we were leasing that we have actually terminated that lease. So that building will go away permanently. As for the rest of the buildings at this point, no, we plan to keep those. Our one campus that has 4 buildings on it, we own that property and those buildings. And in fact, those are the ones that we're renovating. Now, especially as we bring people back, we are going to bring them back and have them still sitting physically distanced. So you'll have a desk and then 2 empty desks, and then somebody will sit there and then 2 empty desks. So, and we plan to do that for quite a while into 2021, at least until everybody has gotten online and been able to get their vaccination. So, and then eventually, although our work from home numbers may go up somewhat, we do anticipate that the majority of our workers will end up coming back to the campus.
Okay, and I'm gonna direct this towards Mary, but it could be to anybody, any of you guys. And I'm going to throw a term I haven't heard for a while, job sharing, but change it to desk sharing. Are there any thoughts, in the same vein about, cutting down the physical presence of your companies, of looking at, you have somebody that teleworks Tuesdays and Thursdays and somebody that does it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, where they could theoretically share the same space? Is any of you guys looking at that perhaps?
So they're not looking at that particular model, but as part of the space utilization plan, they are looking at where they can set up in the Capitol Mall area, what they're calling hoteling options. That was actually something that my agency was looking at pre-pandemic. We had done a virtual office pilot in 2019, and we were already in the process of drawing up plans and identifying space in our particular building pre-COVID. It was prime real estate, newer building, held more than 1,000 employees from, I think, 8 to 10 different agencies. And so that's the model that we're looking at, hoteling space for the virtual office workers who might need to come in 1 or 2 times a month. They can bring a laptop set up and just connect into their agency network. So that's the option that we're looking at.
We have something similar that we actually do. We call it blue work. And so we have whole buildings that are nothing but blue work. So when you come in, there's a monitor, a desk space, a chair, and you just sit in any open location. So that, and then we have, rules about how much stuff you can bring. We have lockers. So if you can put your personal belongings in lockers, because you're not going to have an assigned desk space. And we're growing that. So more of our buildings, more of our spaces are actually going to this blue work. And then that way it can be, our janitorial staff can clean it really well. And then the next day, because somebody else may be sitting there the following day.
Interesting. Elizabeth, are there other questions?
So there's they're all in the chat.
Okay.
So we have a question. Chris asked, when you think of lessons learned from this work from home period, what have been the biggest surprises and takeaways as we ponder, and this sounds kind of like a group question, as we ponder work-life commuting post-COVID?
Chris is philosophizing.
Yep. I'll let you guys think about that. And then let's see. Mary, I think you already answered this question about the transit passes issued per month pre-COVID, and it sounds like you're transit passes are valid for a really long time.
Yeah, so those aren't monthly passes.
Okay.
And we just did, funny enough, we did a renewal, and I just wanted to bang my head against a wall when I realized that renewal process was going on at roughly, right when they're getting ready to send out early ballots. So our renewal process coincides with presidential election years, and Arizona's been a vote by mail state for a couple of decades now. But so we did that renewal process in September, and so the passes are good for 4 years. It's a great program that Valley Metro has for employers, and so they get their transit cards, and every ride that the rider takes is recorded. So we get those files and we split the cost between the employee and our agency. And so that employer has, and even if they transfer agencies, if they say go from Department of Corrections to Department of Administration, they take their card with them. So it's a great program. And yeah, so it's those cards are, they stay with the employee for as long as the employee is with the state. And then after the end of that time, they all get renewed on the same cycle.
Pretty cool, actually. Okay. Then there was a question about air quality regarding last summer's ozone season. And I think this is a big question that we're looking at everywhere, right? But does anyone know about air quality from last summer? And then Amanda had an article that she shared, but if anybody else has any other, insights or research or anything, that would be good to share too.
Okay, well, I'm gonna pick on somebody to kind of talk about their program a little. I see Melvin's on the line. So Melvin, if you wouldn't mind unmuting and just talk a little about what Tesla's doing. You could, I don't know, you could either talk about the Bay Area or out here in Reno.
Yeah, no problem. Scott, how you doing? Good to see you, man. I'll jump on video real quick. Got that little background here, but yeah, we're doing I would say for Vanpool in the Reno area, and specifically, we've got a substantial amount of Vanpools. We haven't really had the effects of COVID hit us, as we've been, really going through and dredging through this with, us being a finished goods business. Production is our primary focus. And so, with that being said, we've continued to push the envelope with Vanpools. We've actually worked on being more COVID compliant. We've done things like provide $100 reimbursements for cleaning of the vehicle, full detailing of it, so that, workers don't have to feel like they have to clean it out and deal with that. We've actually looked at dividers in the vehicles. We've actually social distanced the vans, right? We've done a lot. We worked with Enterprise, and I think Rick McNeil's on the call, but we worked with them, on creating a COVID plan, right? COVID compliant plan that Enterprise rolled out. So with all those different things, working with the HNS and working with our stakeholders internally, our goal was to essentially educate a lot of the executive stakeholders, and then also collaborate in order to get true, not only buy-in, but then to double, triple down. As we saw transit take a back seat, as we saw shuttles have to, roll at half capacity, or we saw folks that really needed to get back into the workforce, we wanted to give a layer that we felt was essential. And Vanpool has been the key mode that we've seen astronomically grow. In the Bay Area, it's grown. I would say, I think in one location we've had like a 1,000% growth. I mean, in one location, in the Reno sector, we've grown about 40% just from last year, and we're looking to uptick from there. So really excited working with the RTC, really, lockstep with you guys, and then also making sure that we're working with our shareholders, right? The people in the vans, and then our executive stakeholders, make sure we're compliant and doing all the right things, and then marketing correctly to our audience, knowing what matters to them. It's been a huge success, so all of those different factors, by staying positive and really knowing what matters, and really providing it to our folks, the premium parking and it covering the tolls, gas, whatever we can in order to keep them going has been a huge win for us. I'll stop there.
Well, and I'll say your premium parking is a plus because you have so many employees out there. Do you have that all asphalted yet, or do they still, some of them have to park out in the on the dirt?
Yeah, and we have people that still need to park on the dirt and stuff. I know my colleague Clark is on the call that's running our operation out there. And Clark, you can chime in anytime. But we have people parking on both. The asphalt, we have premium parking set up in front of the factory for our van pools. We are growing, so we're going to get more people on the asphalt. But as we are looking to grow and build there, we're getting more people and we're putting them where we can. But they do have premium parking on site on our asphalt for our van pools at this current time.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive out there because do you have over 10,000 employees out there?
Yeah, roughly around there. It's a huge amount. We're obviously still hiring and we're building up like crazy. We know that 80 corridor is a nightmare as usual, yeah. But we do what we can, right? So.
Well, and it is. If there's ever a place where preferred parking kind of stands out, it's there because it's such a massive parking lot that you can walk for 10 or 15 minutes to get to the front door. So being in a van pool allows you to park right up close, and it saves you a little bit of time. So it's cool. Thanks, Melvin.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Appreciate it, guys.
No problem.
Don't go away yet, Melvin. There's a couple questions for you in the chat.
Oh, sorry. I was like, presto changeo.
No, not so fast. 2 questions for you. One, are you using Scoop? And does Tesla 100% subsidize your van pools?
So to answer question 1, are we using Scoop? No, we're not. We disassociated from Scoop September 2020. We were looking at, potential ways that we can, we were looking at rolling back, getting carpool back in, but we're looking at doing it, looking at seeing what everything across the board is. Obviously with COVID coming into play and stuff like that, obviously carpooling wasn't the biggest thing right now. So we want to recalibrate with that to see if we have an internal option that makes sense that we can make that's identifiable, or is it B, do we look at an off-the-shelf product or do it half and half? So we want to make something that makes sense to everyone. I think everyone on the call can agree to this, but there's not one off-the-shelf product that makes sense for everybody, right? There's a plus minus to everything. So we're trying to kind of use that van pool concept of really talking to our audience and seeing what matters to give them the best optimal experience. And so we're looking to either go third party partially, maybe go internal, maybe do a combination. So that's where we currently are at this time. For van pool, yes, Tesla does subsidize 100%. We cover everything: gas, tolls, maintenance. We cover it all across the board. And so that's been a helpful thing. And I think for us, we also provide valet and premium parking. So, that's the huge part. If you're at Reno, it's premium parking, right? If you have valet at like Reno or Fremont sites in the Bay Area, you can pull right up, hand the keys off, and it's a huge win for our employees. So it's been huge with HOV lanes, with the variable tolls in some places, maybe outside of Reno, but it's a big win in a lot of locations.
Great.
Thanks, Melvin.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
So
can I kind of add on to what Melvin was talking about?
You
with
sure can.
Precautions. So with Valley Metro, some of the things that we've done to help our riders stay safe are we have provided some PPE kits, which include cleaning supplies, masks, gloves, and things like that. And of course, we require masks on all public transit, van pool, bus, light rail, and so forth. And we used to require a minimum of 6 people to start a van pool, but since COVID, we don't require that anymore for social distancing. And if we have a group that, let's say they did have 6 and they wanted room for social distancing, we were offering an additional van at no cost, so they could split their group into 3 in each van, or whatever the number would come out to. And then we also partner with Enterprise. They are offering special promotions for current van pool groups who refer a new group. They would receive a $200 incentive. So we continue to promote that, to help our current van pool groups pass the word along to essential workers or other groups that may be commuting into the office to take advantage of that current incentive. So those are the things that Valley Metro has been doing along with partnering with Enterprise.
That's awesome. This is Melvin here. Scott, I have one more thing. I think that was awesome. I want to piggyback on what you said a moment ago, because one of the things that we've done at Tesla as well is we've done that, right? We've worked in the social distancing in our vans. We only offer, I think we're down to like 4 people in an SUV. I think 5 for like any 10 to 15 passenger van with a diagonal configuration. We've actually looked at the distance between each seat and paired up that with EH&S to see, hey, is this actually going to be COVID compliant, right? So that's a big one. And the other thing too, I think what you just mentioned, the $200 incentive, right, for employer referral has been a huge, I would say the biggest factor for our program. We're actually, I know my colleague Clark's on this call, we're actually doing something a little different. We're actually going to toss in an extra like $100 for every 5 referred vans in the Reno region for our Reno folks. We're going to roll this out pretty soon, toss it in there just to spur it up, right? Get people going. So that's a big one, but we're looking at fun incentives, doing maybe a March Madness campaign, maybe an Earth Day to Bike to Work Day campaign. There's a lot of good things like that can be thrown up there that can help draw adoption. I'll stop. Thanks, guys.
And one thing, we're working with both Enterprise and Tesla right now to start a pilot program, hopefully around July, where we will have, for the Tesla folks, 10 all-electric vehicles. So there'll be SUVs, typical regular, minivan kind of vehicle, but it'll be all electric. And the advantage of going for them working at Tesla, obviously, is they have on-site charging, a lot of it. So could be very interesting, try to get a little ahead of everything. So do we have any other questions? Anybody else? We got 5 minutes left. Talk about what you guys are doing to go back to work. At RTC, we are starting to go, we paused in March, and then I want to say so long ago now, every day is the same. We went back on a limited basis in the fall until it got worse, and then we all went back to telecommuting again for the most part, and now we're moving back into the office on a limited basis. I go in 3 days a week, some people are 2 days a week, so that we don't have we don't have a lot of people in our building anyway, but that kind of keeps it down. So is anybody else transitioning back into the office that they would like to discuss with us for 4 more minutes?
Or if anyone has thought about Chris's biggest surprises and takeaways as we ponder work-life commuting post-COVID questions, feel free to chime in with that as well.
And I'd also be curious as to how many agencies have revamped their telework policies to change to, I mean, we've done that. We had people that did telework a couple days a week before, but I don't think it was really regulated. Our HR department came up with, the forms to fill out. This is what you have to do. This is what you have to have safety-wise, equipment-wise, what days are you working, how are you available, that kind of stuff. So I would assume that we weren't the only one that realized that even though we did have people teleworking, we didn't have a formalized program. And so are there other people that had experiences around that? Because if not, I'm gonna push the international conference in August. Early bird registration is now open, save an extra $100. And I believe that if for some reason it doesn't happen, that will be refunded. Elizabeth, correct me if I'm wrong. So you're at no obligation. You're not risking anything extra other than trying to save your agency or yourself $100. So, and for Valley of the Sun members, we are offering a scholarship for this. So if you would please apply to us if you're thinking about going, we'll cover the registration fee. You will have to cover, or your organization, the rest, but we'll cover that chunk of it for you. You will be somewhat obligated to write a little article for our newsletter, but other than that, you can go enjoy the our chapter meeting in person. Have a cocktail or two as we discuss what we want to do for the next year. It's always fun. Everybody seems to enjoy it. So if there's no more questions, I'm going to turn it back to Elizabeth.
Anyone? I will say, oh, did I hear a question? No, okay. I will say regarding the conference, since Scott brought it up, I'll just sort of piggyback on that. Regardless of what happens with the conference, if you register and take advantage of the early bird, but then something happens, you know, closer to the actual conference date and you're not able to attend, there's a you know, reflecting on what's going on in the world right now, there's a much more flexible refund policy. So be sure to check the conference website and read through all of that. So we don't want anyone in a position where they're stuck if they've registered early, or that they're not registering because they're afraid of what could happen. Like we totally get it. So definitely look through the conference website for all of those details.
And I'm gonna throw one more thing. Chris, if you could unmute for a second and talk about our next webinar. I think this one is going to be extremely interested. It will be done as an ACT National webinar. So Chris, it's yours.
Thanks, Scott. Happy to mention we are coming up on March 25th will be our next Valley of the Sun webinar, and we're going to be profiling a project called Project Cul-de-sac, which is excuse me, based down in downtown Phoenix. It is the first car-free planned community, and it's going to be looking at how urban planning can take a different look and focus by pulling cars out of the design plan and relying more heavily on different forms of public transportation, whether it be rideshare, light rail, bus service, and micro-mobility. So we'll be interviewing or profiling the design plan for this project, talking to the CEO and the general manager, and giving you a chance to kind of see how one of these transformative projects is taking shape and how it's progressing in its construction. So that'll be 10 o'clock on March 25th.
11 o'clock.
Sorry, excuse me, 11 o'clock. Time, yes.
We tried 10, Chris, remember?
That's right. 11 o'clock, sorry. 11 a.m.
11 a.m. There you go. After time change.
Right, right. Yeah, so look for emails for that coming out soon.
Okay, well, thanks very much, everyone, for being on. Thank you especially to our presenters. You guys did a fantastic job. Appreciate your, giving us your information and your time and putting together your presentation. So I wish everybody a great Friday, Junior. Friday is right on the horizon, so we enjoy the weekend. Hopefully, it won't be quite so cold.
Thanks, everyone.